What if that ship didn't even exist? Did you ever think about that? I didn't know. So now if I went and made a major security situation out of it, everybody steps in, administration steps in, and there's no exclusive rights for anybody. Nobody wins. So I made a decision, and it was wrong. It was a bad call, Ripley. It was a bad call.
Bad call.
Right.
These people are dead, Burke! Don't you have any idea what you've done here? Well, I'm gonna make sure that they nail you right to the wall for this. You're not gonna sleaze your way out of this one. Right to the wall.
Hello and welcome to the inaugural is the right word, isn't it?
Yeah.
Inaugural film podcast, Film Ireland film podcast. We are Film Ireland writers, etc. My name is Tiernan. Hello. This is Rory Moore.
Hello.
And we're going to be taking through this week's film news, etc. All of that nonsense. It's been a terrific week, in particular for Irish film. We're just on the edges of Temple Bar here, where thousands of hopefuls have lined up all day to be in Vikings, and you can just see the vast majority of them with strictly gel-back hair and, you know, silly tattoos on their faces. That no, they're just going to turn you away, brother.
If it were Vikings by way of Jersey Shore, I could see it happening. It doesn't quite work.
They are far too pretty. I've seen some mental, crazy people leaning against the line, just watching the people across the way drinking cider, who stand probably more of a chance than these people. So yeah, bustling with film news. It's a real filmy atmosphere. This week we're going to bring to you a review of Frank, which is a much eagerly anticipated Irish film. We don't get many of those, let's be honest about it. But first of all, before we do any of that, we're going to go with movie news. Big on the radar this week is I just hate the arrogance of this nonsense.
I hate that it's news. I hate that we're even talking about it.
Yeah,
right.
Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder, who I'm convinced just has an inner monologue of. Do you see the trailers for that film Fred last year with the squeaky voice child?
Yeah,
I think he must say all of Zack Snyder's monologue. I think he must have dictated him the idea.
Except more sweatiness. If an inner monologue could have just a feeling of teenage sweatiness to it. That was Zack Snyder.
Yeah, oh god, it's awful. Like, I mean, you know, you can have some sympathy for maybe an adult mind that's stalled in childhood, but one that's stalled just being a horny teenager.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have no time for this. Anyway, the news is he has tweeted the exhaust pipe of a maybe Batmobile from under a tarp to get us excited about his would-be Superman Batman film.
It's possibly the most teenage thing I can think of. It's like, look, here's a picture of a car.
Oh god,
it's a car that's stripping. You can only see half of it. It's tantalising.
It's just, I mean, like, once a week they're coming up with new things to try and make us excited about this film, and I just amn't.
Yeah, and are we supposed? I feel like, are we going to talk about, you know, how it's more like Tim Burton's Batman thing? Is it even worth that?
That's what it's going for. Yeah. The wide wheels are the Tumbler, but the length is the Tim Burton.
Yeah.
And it's just, no.
And the girth is bigger than you think. Wider than you think, okay? It's cold outside.
I mean, what do they need to do more with this movie? They've got like they're telling us there's a Wonder Woman one week, which...
There was mentioned a Martian Manhunter at one point.
Oh, no, they can't, but they cannot bring Martian Manhunter.
But no, you know, they're talking about how it's going to be like a sneaky Justice League movie.
No, because there has been, it's been announced now that Zack Snyder will in fact direct the Justice League.
Oh, I know that, but like the Justice League one has been slated for this long.
Martian Manhunter, no.
You don't think so?
Do not bring him to screen ever. And to be honest, I've never read any Wonder Woman. I've never read any Martian Manhunter. I've no desire to see either of them on screen.
I feel like Wonder Woman can work, but if you go back and start from the ground up, in a way,
and take away the uniform, just change the uniform. Well, don't take away the uniform.
I think those versions of the movie have been done. They're not something we want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for feminism in comic books, but Wonder Woman sucks. Sorry, who said that? But anyway,
I disagree, but we'll carry on.
Other movie news we have this week. Rory, you've got something?
H.R. Geiger is dead.
H.R. Geiger is dead.
Why'd you give me the bad news? That's not fair.
We should have heard that one first, I suppose. H.R. Geiger is dead. For anybody who needs any filling into who H.R. Geiger was, please Google H.R. Geiger and see what that's.
Turn off Safe Search and see what happens.
H.R. Geiger designed The xenomorph, which actually they're never called xenomorphs in the movie or in any of the movies. So the alien, of originally Ridley Scott's Alien and eventually the Alien franchise, a fantastically phallic film monster that will live in infamy.
Yeah, I don't know, he keyed into something that just horror films don't usually get me, but I was trying to eat spaghetti dinner while watching Aliens the other day, and it was hitting towards the climax. It's the wrong word to use here, but it was the climax of the film where Ellen Ripley she goes back searching for Newt and starts tearing her out of all the organic tissue in the wall, and it was just, there was stuff flying, and I was like, I can't eat while I'm watching this. So fair play, H.R. Geiger. That's your legacy. You made me slightly queasy at dinner.
He actually originally got that job. He produced a book in 1977 of his work called Geiger's Necronomicon, which is, I believe, named after the unholy book from H.P. Lovecraft fiction. Ties an awful lot of the stories together, bad things happening from the book. And Ridley Scott actually contacted him directly and had him design the xenomorph. The rest is history. But more interesting for me, because I've recently seen this documentary, is he took part in the infamous pre-production to Jodorowsky's Dune film that never got made, but that did feature Salvador Dali to play Duke Jared Leto, Orson Welles, who'd be receiving $1 million a day to play the Baron von Harkonnen, and would have his favourite French chef imported from Paris for the duration.
It's quite Baronesque. I mean, he was method acting there, I think.
Shoot, I mean, this stuff was crazy, but if you see Geiger's
drawing,
concept art for it, fantastic, like giant Buddha buildings with Orson Welles' face on them, and that's the sort of place that he lived in. Or the tech design for the sandworms was, he made them slightly like more angular, which was a cousin.
They were like machine-like.
Yeah. It was all very interesting. It was all hooked in with Jodorowsky's original concept designs. I mean, he never really he's not mentioned ever really in the same breath as Sam Winston or the true genius of concept artistry, Jim Henson. But fair to say, he created something truly unique, and I can't genuinely. I think any conversation with favourite movie beast has to start with except the xenomorphs. You can't say the xenomorphs.
Yeah. Well, a xenomorph, when you get lots of them together, they get less and less and less.
Oh, this is true. Yeah.
Yeah. But just to go back to Dune, not to segue too much, but I'm kind of glad that film is one of the most famous films never made, in a way, because
it was going to be made in the 80s.
And I'm not a fan of David Lynch's Dune, and I love the book. And
you're not you see, there's bits of it that I'm a fan of, but ultimately I don't think David Lynch really grasped what that story.
I wish he'd gotten his own script. I'd like to see someone realise, and I'm not saying it needs to be word for word, I'm not one of those purists, but I'd like to see someone realise what's in the book on an epic scale on the screen, instead of saying, I like this, I'll do this, and cut out the other 90%, you know.
Yeah. One of the great things about Dune though is essentially, I mean, it's so literary.
Yeah.
It's constructed literature. It does not lend itself easily to screen.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, like my go-to description for it is it's like any kind of fantasy epic, but it's science fiction's version of it, and science fiction kind of doing it better.
I like H.R. Geiger's sandworms would have been outstanding. I would have loved, I would have loved to seen his what are they, still suits. I would have, how he would have done like a Fremen architecture or even future architecture would have been fantastic.
It's just mental to think that he would have been starting with a monster that was phallic to begin with. What the hell would have happened?
From 1940 to 2014, I'm sure he got a lot done. May he rest in peace. Hear ye. Alright, so moving right along, we've got a section that we're very fond of in the show, in which we challenge one another and give one another homework. This week, I think from now on we're going to probably try and stick them both in the same sort of category, but this week I just picked a film that I liked, and Rory picked a film that he liked, and neither of us had seen either of them. So here we go. I gave you, Rory, Paul Thomas Anderson's immediate follow-up to Magnolia, Punch Drunk Love.
I gave you Once Upon a Time in the West.
Oof, yes.
Sergio Leone.
And a treat it was.
Fantastic film. But yeah, I suppose Punch Drunk Love, I'll open with that. It's actually only the second Paul Thomas Anderson film I've seen.
Really?
Yeah, I've only seen Magnolia before that. You keep telling me to watch There Will Be Blood, but
I should be telling you to watch all of them.
I know, yeah, but There Will Be Blood is one I keep meaning to watch, but you keep saying don't go DVD, go big screen, wherever that's going to happen. But yeah, Punch Drunk Love. I quite enjoyed it. I didn't know what to expect because I've only known it as Paul Thomas Anderson's
Adam Sandler film.
Pretty much, and that one film that Adam Sandler is kind of good in. Because I'm not his biggest fan. I don't hate him, but when I see him in a film, I just think, oh, you're going to be red faced and angry. Okay, and that's pretty much what we get here. But
what I always loved about it is it seems as though Paul Thomas Anderson might have watched Happy Gilmore, Bill Madison, enjoyed them, and said, I can take that to a different place.
Let's build this into the story. Yeah, I suppose just a quick synopsis of it first. You have Adam Sandler playing Barry Egan, who is he's just this almost aggressively agreeable kind of, what is he, a sales executive or something in a warehouse. He seems to acquire anything and sell it to anyone kind of thing. And not in a criminal way, just in he has no particular direction in life.
He's a Del Boy a little bit, except he's not charming enough.
An autistic Del Boy, maybe. Which is, that's probably a bit unfair. But
he's quite annoying. He's quite nervous and bad at communication.
And he has 7 sisters, and he's just overwhelmed by life.
It's nearly a Brothers Grimm modern societal situation that he lives in. It's a horror story.
Yeah, in a way. Basically you have him he meets this woman who desperately wants to connect with him, and he's not sure what to make of it. And then there's also this...
played by Emily Watson.
Yeah, played by Emily Watson. And you have this subplot where he calls a phone sex line and gives out his credit card details, and the lady on the other end of the line tracks him down this way and starts to extort him on behalf of an Aldi brand crime boss. It's Philip Seymour Hoffman.
In truly scummy form.
Yeah. And essentially the film is kind of, we just see Barry going from being really kind of straight-laced and long-suffering to just moments of incredible rage.
What I really enjoy about it is the 2 moments where you see him most angry. You can see that both of the belts of anger are powered by opposing forces. One is just by hate and annoyance when he's at the hands of his sisters, and one is by love, and it's really sweet, and it's violent.
But the thing about that is that first scene you're talking about, say the one motivated by the sisters, it comes out of nowhere. They're talking about telling embarrassing stories of him as a child, and he's doing the kind of Adam Sandler half laugh kind of thing, and then the next shot of him you just hear glass shattering and he's kicking through all these patio doors.
And then the next scene is when these thugs from the sex line they pursue him and sort of crash into his car, and he's really fallen for Emily Watson at this point, and then she gets a bloody nose, and there's just this explosion of violence, but it's really just inspired by just a bloody nose on
the but I think the best thing about that is how calm he is when he goes about it. He gets incredibly violent, but he just gets out of the car with a small smile and a crowbar, and stuff starts to happen. Yeah.
And what do you think of the sound in the film? Because an awful lot of it was written on set, inspired by the moods of the actors.
Yeah, it was. I was telling you this. I watched it with headphones on, and I almost went insane because the first, I'd say, even 20 minutes is just absolute silence. He's there in the early hours of the morning in a warehouse, the warehouse he works in, on his own, making calls, and it's quite sad. And you start to sympathise with him. And then the moment the warehouse begins to get more crowded, things start going on. The sound kicks in, and I don't even know what to describe it. It's just like every form of background noise you could find, something that irritates you and you don't even know what it is, thrown in together, and it was just it really, really gets to you.
Anderson actually continues on with this sort of score experimentation, but he actually ended up using Johnny Greenwood for the following 2 movies, but for along the same lines, or almost directly inspired by the mood on screen. There Will Be Blood opens in a scorching desert, and all you hear is a massive orchestral swirl of a million, it's nearly irritating. But Punch Drunk Love is truly out there for soundtrack experimentation.
Yeah, there are points where
it's just completely off rhythm. It's nearly nauseating.
Yeah, and it's laid over these just kind of banal family scenes and normal day-to-day work scenes where people are just annoying with silly questions,
and you can just nearly see him fidgeting at how much the world is grating on him. But fun fact, there's a subplot in the film as well where he collects all these coupons and frequent flyer miles. That is the story that inspired the whole thing. That's a true story.
Yeah.
Of a man who did manage to scam millions of frequent flyer miles by picking up multi-packs of yogurt, and all 6 barcodes within the pack entitled him to more frequent flyer miles.
Yeah, again, he's an Aldi brand criminal, quite like Philip Seymour Hoffman. But yeah, that final scene between Philip Seymour Hoffman and Adam Sandler, not to be spoilery, but there's just like, because the moment you're introduced to Philip Seymour Hoffman, he wears the kind of rage that Barry's trying to suppress. He wears that on his sleeve, and they're both just face to face, like centimeters apart, roaring at one another, and yeah, it's special. Maybe miss that Philip Seymour Hoffman quite a bit, actually. Yeah.
So would you? Does that go out with a recommendation?
Absolutely, yeah, definitely pick it up. But maybe, well, no, do watch it with headphones. It adds to the effect, but you might smash your patio doors after.
Now, Once Upon a Time in the West. This was my second time ever even hearing of this film. I picked up the DVD one time before when it came out originally. It came out originally with a review. It came on a re-release on DVD, and it came with an Empire review that said it was the greatest Western ever. Now, I'm a massive Western fan, and I was at the time, and I picked it up as maybe a 15-year-old, and to be quite honest, it bored the bejesus out of me, and I turned it off. Now, I really wasn't ready for this film.
You wanted a Zack Snyder movie at that stage, I think.
No, I think I more wanted like my favorite Western, and still my favorite Western, one of my favorite films, is The Wild Bunch. Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch, and I was expecting something along the lines of that. At this point, I hadn't actually seen even the Dollars trilogy. I've since watched the Dollars trilogy numerous times, and getting around to Once Upon a Time in the West, it just felt appropriate. Now, I became immediately excited by one point in this movie, and that was just the opening credits, because it was something that I didn't realise. You're scrolling down through it, they're telling you who wrote the story, who directed, who edited, and then it just tells you that the story was conceived and structured. The story was come up by with a combination of minds, and those were Sergio Leone, Bernardo Bertolucci, and Dario Argento, which is just... And apparently, and I watched documentaries with the making of Africa. Apparently, they just sat around for 2 years watching westerns, classic westerns, because the entire film. The interesting thing is, there's not an original story beat in it.
Yeah, you can you can knock it down to basic character types, but it's what it does with those that I enjoy, I suppose.
I don't think that. Yeah, there's not an original story beat in it, but it's first of all, it's like it's literally like a love hymn to westerns in a lot of ways, because it has all the tropes that you'd expect, but it also has very distinct Leoneisms, and the feeling that you can just tell that they threw budget at him after the Dollars films, because they're so crisp and clear. And he didn't want to make this western. Another thing I understood about it, but then the studio offered him the right to use Henry Fonda, who he uses ingeniously as a villain, and his gorgeous blue eyes on screen just displaying dastardly evil is just, it really plays with you. It affects you. So the main story of Once Time in the West, first of all, to begin the story, we've got one of the greatest opening scenes in film history. Yeah. 3 boys waiting at a train station, no dialogue, drip, drip, drip. Charles Bronson arrives on, harmonica plays, the rest is history. So this new fella, harmonica, who was to be played by Clint Eastwood, this new fella comes in town, harmonica, just messing around with people. He's really intimidating, but nobody knows exactly why he's there. A fella at the very start of the movie, then McBain, him and his entire family are murdered. They live out at this farm in the middle of the desert, and you're basically wondering, the action of the film is who did this, why they did this, and what the hell harmonica is doing hanging around the place. Yeah. Because then at the centre of the action comes along this woman who McBain was to marry, who is played by what's her name now? Claudia Cardinal, who I was so taken by, and Rory Moore can attest to this, that she has now made up the background of my phone.
I noticed that earlier.
This woman is insanely beautiful. The sort that you only got from 1970s Italy, to be
how is Cheyenne's beard not your wallpaper? What's that about? There's a beard.
Cheyenne's got a great beard in it, and Cheyenne is my favourite character in the film by a country mile. Yeah. All in all, I absolutely love this. I loved every second of it. I still would prefer the Good, the Bad and the Ugly, but aside from that, I'd say it was Leone's best film. It's just an absolute masterpiece. It's shot with it uses all his tricks, but from the Dollars trilogy, but in a more mature way nearly.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the when as gradually in the third act, as a harmonica story is being revealed, it'll float back to this great the harmonica theme from the film, the music theme by Ennio Morricone, and it keeps going back to it, and you just get this out of focus picture, and we just know we're eventually going to see the end of this out of focus picture and learn harmonica's full origin story. But it is just a powwow of tension. It's like, for the last 40 minutes of the movie, the Mexican standoff from Good, the Bad and the Ugly is going on. Just so much cutting to this and origin and what.
But there's so much happening that it's almost like it's not just...
And he meditates on what leads up to violence as well.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's not, that's what I was going to say, it's not just a revenge tale, like that's kind of the afterthought, that all the action happens and you're waiting for the film to end and you're like, oh wait, we still have to resolve this. Harmonica has to kill someone or get killed.
Yeah.
But I suppose what grabbed me about it, and the reason I recommended it, is because, okay, now that with all my branded college education and internet accessing self-importance, I know that it's kind of the Western, and I know why it's famous, but I saw it when I was a hell of a lot younger, and what grabbed me was, I was 10 minutes in, there had been no dialogue, or little to no. I didn't know what was happening, and I was sitting there kind of thinking, why am I still watching it, and what's going to happen next?
Like, if nothing else, I mean, yeah, if you just want to see why you should watch as much Sergio Leone as possible, the first 10 minutes of this movie will get better than anything else in his filmography.
And incredible sound design. Yeah,
I mean, there's, like, the man can do great openings to films, there's no question about that. Another great one actually is in his final film, Once Upon a Time in America, with Robert De Niro stumbling into the opium den.
Yeah.
It's a very, very good opening, but it's still this... you'll see, like, even the final shot of this opening scene is just a very famous image in itself. It's the poster boy for westerns. You just see these three lads in dust trench jackets spinning around with Charles Bronson's harmonica figure in between the legs of one of the other ones.
Yeah,
like just at a distance out of shot. It's a terrific film. This one goes on a definite recommendation. Yeah, if you want to get way into westerns, go do it. And one final thing that I loved about it is all the old western tropes it uses. They're from 1950s John Ford westerns where there was never blood, and they're not shy about blood in Once Upon a Time in the West.
Yeah, they kind of ground the tropes, I suppose. But do you remember the absolute, it's my favourite one-liner from not even any western, I think any film, a threatening comeback when Charles Bronson's character asked the three men waiting for him, did they bring a horse for him? And they kind of turn to one another and laugh and say, oh, I guess we only got three, we forgot you. And he slowly shakes his head and goes, no, you brought too many.
Yeah. Very good. And to be honest, I don't think Eastwood would have worked as well.
No, I saw it before I even knew who Clint Eastwood was. Besides that lad on the telly, but Charles Bronson is just iconic for me, and probably because of his like oddly burnt leather face. I don't know. But there's something so he's both boyish and threatening when he needs to be. It has, I could go on about this film all day. I'll stop. It's a great movie.
It's a great movie, and that comes with a definite recommendation. Now, before we get too bogged down in 1968 spaghetti westerns, let's get to the modern era and review a few films from this week, or films that are currently in the cinema. The first we're going to tackle is the big Irish release, one of the few we get per year. Lenny Abraham's... Am I saying that right? Abrahamson. God, lovely Irish name that. Yeah. Lenny Abrahamson's Frank, which opened in cinemas this week.
Last Friday.
We've both seen this. Just to give you a bit of a rundown. Lenny Abrahamson. First of his work that I saw is Adam and Paul. It was to this point my favourite. Now, as you can already tell, I really, really did like Frank. He's a writer director of huge prowess. He didn't write Frank now, on the other hand, but this is his fifth film in. He's done Garage, what Richard did,
and this is fourth, I believe.
Fourth,
yeah.
It's the story of the centerpiece of a prog rock band, I'm going to say, very enigmatic figure, who constantly wears a giant papier-mâché mask, which is a replica of a mask worn by a a character called Frank Sidebottom during the 1970s, who was a bit of a cult icon, but essentially was nothing like the Frank in this picture.
Yeah, absolutely nothing.
I've looked at this guy was pretty much a Saturday morning cartoon. He used to talk with his nose like that, and say phrases like "cold blimey," and if Donald Gleason, his character is an ambitious yet terrible songwriter, who gets the lucky opportunity to join the band and go and record with them in Ireland. The other members of the band amongst who include Maggie Gyllenhaal, and very famously, of course, we've got Michael Fassbender under the mask. And if you're coming along to the cinema for the good looks and fine cheap ones of Michael Fassbender, you'll be for the most part sorely disappointed.
But you'll pay attention to all his other fantastic qualities.
He really acts the hell out of it, and it's basically how Donald Gleason sort of edges his way into the band and into makes himself a little bit important amongst these artistic figures.
I think there was, for anyone who's seen a preview that was released of this months ago, I think it was possibly before Christmas even, there was a quick preview of the montage scene in the middle where Donald Gleason is narrating all their new musical techniques, and basically it ends with him kind of snootily looking out at them saying, I plan to place myself at the very heart of this. And I can remember finishing that clip thinking, Jesus, I don't know, is that the best promotional clip? He comes across as a bit of a shit in this, and then you watch the film,
he's a total shit.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, I've been talking to people
both protagonist and villain.
Yeah, but I've been talking to people about it, and a lot of people conclude, no, he was just trying to do the best for the band. Now, not to spoil anything, but he essentially...
Those people are morons. What did you think of this film?
Really, really, really enjoyed it. I'm a bit sceptical about parts of it, but overall I thought it was fantastic. Really, really funny. Brilliantly acted. Despite the fact that Michael Fassbender is the marketing note because he's under a papier-mâché head, and why the hell is that happening? Donald Gleason, for me, was the best in it.
He was, yeah.
If it were a competition, everyone's fantastic. The music, even, and I was gonna say,
how would you pronounce the name of the band? Superfubs?
By dispensing with every vowel I know, I suppose.
Subterfuges.
Exactly. But
I've been much the same as you. I loved this. I thought it was hilarious, quite often moving. Quite often moving. To be fair, I did.
It does attempt to approach mental health as well.
It does, yeah. Mental health, artistry, that sort of thing. But I think for me, the film's greatest strength was, and Lenny Abrahamson's other movies that I've seen are shared by this, is there are some great dark laughs in there. Laughs that are not quite laughs, and there's good slapstick in it too. There's a terrific moment where Maggie Gyllenhaal punches Donald Gleason in the face.
Someone's thinking in the key of C.
The music also fantastic, but there's a part where Donald Gleason's character takes him to America, and Frank decides he wants to be more commercial, and he performs something which he calls the Likeable song. And I was laughing for a good 60 seconds after that film.
Yeah.
I couldn't. That was so funny.
I wish I hadn't seen it. I know it was in a trailer or a preview clip, but I'd seen it before, so I knew it was coming, and it was still funny, but I just wish that had just been sprung on me, because...
Yeah, no, I hadn't seen it. That was the first I saw of it, and oh wow, really blew me away. For me, yeah, this was a really great film, and it definitely gets a recommendation.
Yeah.
It's as well one thing that... it's not just because it's an Irish film. I'm telling you to go see this. It's because it'll be a long time and a long time some more before you see a film like this again. This is a really unique beast and a great music film.
Yeah, well, this is where I kind of diverge from. I genuinely really enjoyed it, but I feel like it's hampered by the attachment of it being quirky and unconventional, because when I first saw the promos I was like, what the hell is this? And I couldn't wait to see it, and I did enjoy it. But it's one thing to hide Michael Fassbender under a papier-mâché head, but when you know that it's Michael Fassbender under the papier-mâché head, it adds marketing punch, if anything. And I don't think it does so much towards the... I don't think it'll gain... first of all, it also has Maggie Gyllenhaal, but I don't think it'll gain a great deal from Fassbender. I don't think it'll gain a great deal of audience from Fassbender being there. Well, yeah, I'm hearing a lot of people saying like it's a film you're either going to like or you're not, and I wouldn't agree. I think it's probably the most conventional thing that Lenny Abrahamson has done, apart from asking us to pronounce his name. But that's again, that's not criticism.
I do think the head has a functional thematic part in the story.
Yeah, the whole idea of...
I know you could... Now, to be fair, you could do this other ways. Yeah, it's the whole like idea that, you know, they are just people, essentially. Artists that are on pedestals. And they might seem ridiculous, but they are just people at the heart of it. And there were other ways you could do it. But what really made the Frank Sidebottom head enter the fold is it was... ascribed by the old keyboard player from his band, John Ronson, who also wrote The Men Who Stare at Goats, and I think that's the only reason it's there. Yeah. And I think the only reason Michael Fassbender's in it is because he read it and he said this is a damn good script.
It started off as a completely different script with John Ronson though. But no, my point is, like, and you were kind of hitting upon it there by saying there's thematic value to the paper mache head. Yeah, like I get, and Lenny Abrahamson has spoken about this as well before he even made the film, about his, you know, skepticism of celebrity and the idea of putting people on pedestals. And yeah, you have the Twitter monologues throughout it as well, and showing how kind of banal
that's
it is.
A great
it's a great,
that's very well monologue. Used, and that in the last season of Sherlock I thought did that to death with me, but that was very well
yeah
used.
No, it was very good in this, because he's just increasingly tweeting things that are just more and more divorced from reality. But yeah, I just don't think it's the dissection of art and celebrity that people think it is. I think it's quite conventional. You get your happy ending, you get your kind of boiled down structure, and yeah, there are dark notes in it, but I think it's quirky, done as marketably as quirky can be done, and that's not a criticism, it absolutely isn't, but I struggle to think of an audience that won't find something to genuinely enjoy in it.
Oh yeah, it's a hugely enjoyable film, and people should go to see it. We'll leave that one for the moment now. The next one we've got is the directorial debut of Jeremy Saulnier, writing, directing, and armed with 300 grand he got off a Kickstarter fund. This really blew me away. Blue Ruin.
Yeah, and I kept meaning in the run-up to this and never got a chance to see who the hell picked it up, because they've done well. Because Kickstarter you associate with indie, yet I can go down to Cineworld in Parnell Street and watch it, and it's a great film.
I would easily lump this in with the fantastic Coen Brothers debut, Blood Simple. Easily. This... People got to go see this movie. This film, it opens like this, panning into a steaming bathroom, a tattooed arm hanging out of a bath, and a pan around to see a heavily bearded face. This is our main character, Macon Blair, who plays Dwight, who we've never seen anything before. And we hear door opening downstairs, cut to the outside of the house, and this man, naked, carrying his clothes, leaps out the window, and we come to realise that he's a vagrant. And we go through about 5 minutes of him living under piers, reading by booklight in a car, the titular, the Blue Ruin of the title.
Going through trash and
like eating stuff and just having coffee and a torchlight and a book, and this is how he lives. And then a cop comes along to tell him that a certain somebody, we learn later that this guy murdered his parents. It's not a big spoiler to say that.
No, it's about 10 minutes in.
That this guy has been released from prison, and Dwight automatically begins to get his shit together and go on a bit of a revenge road trip, but in the most like this is not revenge porn. This is violence begets violence, horror existing in the world at a centre of a theme. But also, I won't go to what has happened in the film by the end of the first 20 minutes, but it has relentlessly punches the audience into a tense situation, and you do not leave that for the next 70 minutes.
I think like it's important to talk about what happens 20 minutes, and not as a spoiler and not to reveal anything, but basically what I loved so much about this film and what made me kind of watch it is you were telling me to go see it, and I did. And at the start I was kind of like, I just want to be at home in bed because I was wrecked. And then 10 minutes in, like I say, it's a revenge story. It dispenses with the entire structure that you expect. It gets all of that out of the way in 10-15 minutes. Yeah. And from there it's another hour and a half of what the hell is going to happen next. It's so tense. It's as ballsy a screenwriting move as John Doe handing himself in 30 minutes before the end of 7. Yeah, because it's you're expecting this structure, a Kill Bill type format,
and it just this is I've only ever walked out of one movie, and it was The Grudge. It was because it was too scary, and I made my girlfriend
just stay in the cinema the rest of the time, or you only walked out of one.
No, I walked out of The Grudge. I made my girlfriend come with me and dragged her into The Incredibles. This is the closest I've come to walking out of a cinema since, because the last 15 minutes are so bloody tense that I was it's nearly stressful. Like,
I got some great abdominal workouts while
Yeah,
watching
oh
it. So it was just, there was a rock in the center of my stomach the entire time. Yeah, it does something in a way. I don't know. I mean, I associate it with good visuals, but I think it's the script and obviously the performances. But the script, if you actually go back and watch it again, no one speaks for 15 minutes at the start of this film.
No one speaks a great deal in it,
and you don't miss it. You honestly it's only when I was.
I'd say the entire thing was written in visuals.
Yeah, it's
because it's an action movie in the sense of one that I could compare nearly to last year's All Is Lost with Robert Redford. Where there's a great deal of action. Dwight is never idle in this. Dwight is always doing something.
Yeah, but it's all screen direction.
And it's always functional. He's always doing something that needs to be done. There's a terrific part of the film just where he opens up the back of his boot, reinserts the battery, or even when he's hiding out inside a house and he balances a jar of coins against a door.
Yeah,
it's terrific.
Yeah, there's something, I don't know if that's a commentary on being resourceful when you're homeless or what it is, but because
Dwight is a meek character.
Yeah, and this is what I was going to say. That the reason it's so tense for me is because maybe 20 minutes in after, again, not to go into spoiler territory, but an incredibly violent thing has just happened, and it's very easy for something like that to happen early on in the film, and it just dilutes any violence afterwards. And I think this is what it is. He loses the beard. He becomes quite clean cut, and you think maybe he's going to try and re-assimilate into society, but he's not really. He's kind of hiding, I suppose, in plain sight. But his sister turns around to him and says, "You haven't done what you've done because you're brave. You've done it because you're weak." And you just see how scared he is. And from then on, it just you fear for him constantly, despite the fact that he's doing these things,
and you like him.
Yeah, absolutely. You're rooting for him when you absolutely shouldn't be. There's one point in the film where I was actually rooting, and it's a scene that you probably know when I say it, but he's in a tough situation, and I was rooting for him to die, just for it to end for him. Not because I wanted him dead, but I just wanted,
I know the
leave him alone.
I know this is in the car on his friend's land.
Yeah.
To say no more. Yeah. The very same. And now, very interestingly enough, Jeremy Saulnier has been linked up with maybe directing a few episodes of next season's True Detective, the second season of True Detective. He has already said in an interview that he would be absolutely delighted to take on that mantle. He hasn't confirmed whether or not there has been talks on it, but I think that would be a great movie because they both exist in the exact same United States of awful,
absolutely,
people and violence.
That hurts me to hear that, because I was actually just about to say that I'd like to think that Blue Ruin exists in the same universe as True Detective. I didn't know he was picked out to direct it. I'd love to see that, absolutely, because he's well able to. I mean, he'd be playing with much better toys. No, absolutely, because
although to take nothing away from Macon Blair, terrific.
I don't mean the cast. I mean visually in this, because I knew it was Kickstarter, maybe I was projecting. There are times where you can kind of see this is shot on a red Epic rather than whatever they shoot True Detective on, with my expertise. But basically, True Detective was so visually beautiful. I can see him being able to do the same thing. And so visually dense. There's
one more film we want to talk about because we both finally got around to seeing it this week after everybody giving out about it. We won't spend too much time on it, but I enjoyed the shit out of Wally Pfister's directorial debut, Transcendence. I really liked this film.
Yeah,
and it has been rubbished. It has been rubbished everywhere, and I think the only reason it's being rubbished is because it cost $100 million to make.
I think anyone who. I feel like Wally Pfister was going to suffer a lot, not just in high school from his name, probably, but also just from the fact that he was Nolan's cinematographer, and there's a very specific look to Christopher Nolan's films that in Transcendence you realise is as much Wally Pfister.
Yeah.
It's kind of his brand that had been let out.
It absolutely is. I never thought about it like that, you know. And especially in Inception and The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, absolutely.
My goodness, those are yeah.
Yeah, but I think the main reason...
Those are Pfister films.
Again, I think that's a different genre you're thinking of. But, sorry. But, no, I think the main reason I went to see this, and the main reason I was so pleasantly surprised by it, is the terrible reviews. People are, they're just crapping all over it, and I think it has, we were talking about this, it has one of the smartest scripts I've not read, but seen translated to screen. So
let's jump in the story just for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Just so people, it's basically, Johnny Depp, he's a technological genius, a computer genius, and he is toying with the idea of mapping out a human brain with computers, something which his best friend Paul Bettany claims can never be done, and something which he receives an awful lot of help with from Rebecca Hall, his wife, and then something which Morgan Freeman shows up because hell, he's famous and he's worked with Wally Pfister before.
He was a mentor at some point, yeah.
But anyway, a very interesting idea. Anti-technology terrorists.
With a very cool name, Rift. Radical something from technology. Radical intercession, from technology.
Inception?
That doesn't make sense. I don't know.
Is this the same universe as Inception? Is Cillian Murphy there too?
He is, as the FBI agent.
Oh yeah,
and he's just there in the background in a pretty...
Wally Pfister just called all his mates!
Yeah. And he's got them even better.
But yeah, eventually the terrorists get around to Johnny Depp. It appears he might be dying, and he uploads himself to a computer. But basically, Paul Bettany warns that this won't be him. This is just projections of the aspects of his personality that you're able to mirror.
If you miss a single thing, it's gonna, you won't know what you're dealing with. I think is the line he's talking about.
And there's a line that's in the trailer that didn't actually make the film that really sold this differently. It's Morgan Freeman going, "It would mean the end of humanity."
Oh yeah, that was the obligatory Morgan, please come in for 5 minutes to sit in the booth. We need to make a trailer.
It was just silly because that's not what this film is about. This film, and I'm sure you'll get it from that synopsis we just gave, is a story that's been done many times before, just never well.
Never this intelligently or respectful of...
There are leaps of faith they make with technology, but...
Absolutely, but you buy into them at the point because they've established... I don't know. It deals with it in a, again, not to be try and be highbrow about it, but it deals with it in a sociological way where it just kind of, I think it implies at some point, would we not be better off if this machine were to guide our actions? Like I think the biggest thing about the film for me was the fact that there was room for 3 leads in it.
Yeah, which they juggled very well.
Yeah, Paul Bettany, Rebecca Hall, and Johnny Depp as face on a screen for most of it, but all are brilliant in it, and all no one.
And there's very good techno terror moments in it. Techno terror is something that originated with when the robot from 2001 starts getting creepy. What's his name again?
Hal. I'm actually looking at the blinking lights on the podcast machine here, and it's rather similar.
You've talked enough now, Donnchadh.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. When Johnny Depp's machine type person repairs one of the workers at his plants, and then he turns around to Rebecca Hall and goes, "I can touch you now," and it's really like, whoa, Jesus.
Yeah.
It's but what is ultimately the strength of this is something that James Cameron always tries to have on his side, that at the very centre of this story there is a love story, and it works. It worked for me anyway. I was able to buy the characters. I was able to sympathise with them, and ultimately, whenever you were wondering what was up with Johnny Depp's character, I mean, whether or not he was real or evil or anything, you were hoping he wasn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the moment, and I think it's in the trailer, so I don't think it's a spoiler, but there's a moment where essentially he comes back in human form, and there's just something about having seen him on the screen for most of the thing, and you're supposed to just trust him. The moment he steps into shot in human form, the first thing that came into my head is like, oh, they should hug or something.
Yeah.
And again, if you see the film, this is in the middle of a rather climactic scene, so I probably should have been thinking of something else. But
I really like this film. I think that in a few years it'll get the recognition it deserves. So I'm gonna I'll pitch it in the same campsite as Kevin Costner's 1995 masterpiece Waterworld.
Okay. You can drown it there along with it. But no, I think the most notable thing about it for me, the thing I took away from it, and that I didn't cop until the end credits, is that it was written by Jack Paglin, who will also be writing the Prometheus follow-up. And what was the other one that we mentioned?
Which, thank God they've got Damon Lindelof off that.
Yeah.
Don't give him anything
This
anymore.
is the thing about Prometheus. We were giving out about it earlier. I do not like the film that much at all, but I'm still, the moment I heard there was a sequel, I was still glad. I just cordoned off the first one, set it aside, and went, let's go again.
I think most of the foibles in... Why are we talking about Prometheus? It's 2014. Yeah. I think most of the foibles in Prometheus are, if you look at Lindelof's other work, are down to Lindelof just gaps that he's willing to leave.
Yeah.
Why do they turn into weird zombie things?
I know.
Why is Rory's cousin a moron?
He's not a moron.
The character he plays.
He's really smart about rocks, okay? But
I hope Transcendence gets a second life because I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Absolutely, and I'd love to see Wally Pfister do something. I suppose I'd love to see him do a Children of Men style of sci-fi next. Something that's like down and dirty and
to grips with realism, dystopia, and stuff like that. Yeah. Right. So, what not to see this week? Brick Mansions is still out, so don't see that. Have you got any?
I haven't seen anything explicitly terrible, but I have something that's sitting on the fence between a recommendation and a don't inflict this on yourself, but maybe do. Have you ever heard of Alex Jones? He's like an American political commentator.
Yes, I have heard of Alex Jones.
But he also takes time out on his YouTube channel to dissect. He's mad about the Illuminati, basically. And I stumbled across him because I was Googling Jack Paglin, and you know these weird odysseys you do through the internet where you just end up on something unrelated.
Yes.
I'd imagine it was a Prometheus connection, but I ended up on Alex Jones' channel where he was dissecting Prometheus and talking about how it's Illuminati propaganda.
Wow.
And what I love about it, what I absolutely love about it is he believes what he's saying. And I'm not being condescending because I am an English graduate, so is Donnchadh. From our perspective, if you can say something and back it up with evidence from the text, you're not really wrong. And he can, and just seeing the way he does this to so many...
You probably put more thought into Prometheus than Damon Lindelof did.
Absolutely.
And actually, if I have to give something from the internet, I very recently rewatched the Century of Self... I'm always recommending.
Yeah, this documentary, and I will get around to it.
About the inventor of advertisement. That's one, and it's all on this website called Thought Maybe. It's available for free, and it's very educational. My turkey not to see this week is Brick Mansions. My film to see this week is gonna be Blue Ruin.
I'm gonna have to go the same and say Blue Ruin is my film to see.
I enjoyed the hell out of Frank, and it's an Irish film, and everyone should see it. But Blue Ruin is the best thing out this week.
Yeah. One last internet note, actually. Did you hear somewhere in the last few weeks that Darren Aronofsky was trying to tackle source material from the Bible in a film about an ark or something that might have flitted through cinemas and quickly been drowned?
I didn't hear.
It's been released online actually in a quick 2.5 minute form. Everything enjoyable about the film. The quick creation of life sequence, stop motion, get it on YouTube.
Well worth a look.
Have a look at that, and you've seen everything enjoyable from Noah.
Yeah. I saw
that was a bit bitchy,
Mark Kermode referred to the poster for Noah as Wet Gladiator, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah,
it's the same
sealskin gladiator. Yeah,
only he's got a hammer instead of a sword. Very funny. Anyway, we should be back soon. We should have a Facebook page and a Twitter account very soon. This is the Film Ireland podcast, essentially. Once we have those up, and keep an eye out on the Film Ireland website, we'd like you all to send us questions, suggestions, anything you'd like, except a change in personnel, which we're not willing to negotiate on.
We'll even take the death threats. Put them on the wall.
It'll be quite exciting. Yeah. We're going to be back in our little room sometime soon talking about movies. One's more current. We promise Prometheus won't be brought up again. Waterworld probably will. I'm Donnchadh Tiernan.
I'm Rory Moore.
And goodbye for now. Be good.
Goodbye now.